Hi, thanks for joining us at Adelaide Capital Studio. Today we have Scott Trebilcock, who's CEO of Core Mining. If you recall, Core Mining did a webinar with Adelaide back in April, I believe it was, and the stock's performed phenomenally well since then. And they've had a very active exploration project at their FG Gold asset in BC. And they actually had news out today, which is July 23rd, with some exceptionally high-grade near-surface results. So I thought it would be a great time to get an update with Scott. So thanks for joining us today, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Deborah. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. The stock's had a significant move since we last hung out virtually. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, lots of water under the bridge since then. It's been a really interesting time, particularly to be in the gold business.
Yeah, it's quite the beginning of a cycle. So since we last spoke, you've raised quite a bit of capital in the market, and you've had a significant shareholder come in who I believe was already an investor back in April, but has come in on subsequent rounds. And I thought it would be worth mentioning Eric Sprott's investment and what you think he sees in the project and why he continues to give you more and more capital.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Certainly, we had Core coming into the first part of this year when we last talked, had foundation investments from both Macquarie Bank and Eric Sprott in 2019, and we were using that relatively small amount of capital to start taking some steps and get Core a little better known. And we had a variety of options and inbounds as the market got hotter about financing. And all along we were talking with Eric, and he made, he expressed interest in going to a 25% kind of position in the company. And over a course of, two investments over about a month and a half, he brought himself up to that level. At the final deal was at a buck a share, whatever that was, about 6 weeks ago. We had just closed the first part of it, actually, I think yesterday. So, with his money in the bank, we can, more aggressively attack our portfolio. And what he likes is exactly that. Core has ounces in the ground, and he wants to see those ounces in the ground generate value at or above our peers. And I think that's where Core still looks really cheap.
Agreed. Just for anyone that's new to the story that maybe didn't participate in our webinars or see the replay, can you remind the audience of what you actually have in terms of resources at your various projects?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to remember some numbers here, but
it's great to put you on the spot.
Yeah, so we've got a total of 4.9 million ounces spread across 3 projects. We've got 1.7 million ounces at our Long Valley project in California. We've got 2.2 million ounces at the Imperial Project, also in California, where we have a PEA. And then we've got about 1 million ounces up in British Columbia at the FG Gold Project, where we delivered the news results this morning. And Core has taken the strategy that we're going to take that 2.2 million ounces at Imperial, push it towards development. So there is a real development story in Core. That's where you get the PEA, the net asset, the PNAV valuations, the analyst coverage. But in parallel with that, Eric is most interested in using the drill bit to define value across all 3 of those assets. So, we're doing a lot of exploration work in parallel.
Okay, well, that sounds great. And with his investment as well as the acceleration of warrants recently, where does your treasury sit?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're about 75% through people cashing in their warrants. There was a 75-cent warrant that was going to expire in October anyways, so we had an option to call it early, and we accelerated it. With that money in the bank, we should have something neighborhood of 11.5 or 12 million Canadian in the treasury. And I think that'll give us great flexibility to deliver a series of drill programs across the portfolio while in parallel pushing Imperial into the permitting process. So I think we're well funded to deliver all our objectives for the balance of this year.
Okay, and how do you plan to deploy that capital specifically? What do you have earmarked for FG, Imperial, and Long Valley?
Yeah, so not to preempt the board meeting tomorrow to talk about use of funds. Ultimately, the way I think about allocation of capital at Core is job number 1 is to ensure we, do it Imperial right. So I put it, what's the best way to go forward with permitting? That means having, on the ground staff, engaging with the community, doing, supporting the Bureau of Land Management and our regulators, and do it right. So that's, job number one for capital. But in the end, it's a small project and doesn't take a lot of technical work. So we're only talking, through $2, $3, $4 million a year US to fund the permitting. So in parallel to that, we then have the exploration component where when we have excess capital, we go and drill. We're currently financing a 5,000 meter drill program at FG. And as soon as the permits come in, we'll spend another $1.5 million to $2 million drilling in California at whichever project gets permitted first. And the mantra in core is we always want to drill turning because it creates news flow, excitement, and value creation on the exploration side of the strategy.
I think that's a smart strategy. So let's talk about FG Gold. You had these results out this morning. I think it's the third round of drill results you've had recently. These are incredibly high grade, near surface results. So yeah, maybe give us a little bit of an understanding of what you're seeing there, what's getting you excited, and what the plans are with the 5,000 meter program.
Yeah, exactly. So we drilled 8 holes in the starter program at the beginning of this year. The objective of those holes were to use sort of a very modern, quite expensive form of drilling, so oriented core, so you can actually see how the rock is in the core barrel, wide diameter core, because we're actually, the FG Gold project is a coarse gold project, meaning the gold is, there's even visible gold chunks, and it's, the gold is in very coarse elements of the core, so you want to have a big sample coming out of the ground. And then we're also using an expensive assaying technique called metallic screens to properly assay that coarse gold in the core. And what we're seeing from that expensive, sort of more scientific drilling is we're seeing increases from the traditional fire assays of anywhere from 10 to up to 50%, because we're actually drilling through an existing resource, right? And we're trying to upgrade that resource to get it to a grade where, let's call it becomes a real project. And then we're also running those holes long to try and make discoveries underneath the historic drilling, which is all very shallow. The deposit was only drilled to an average of 93 meters below the surface. And when you think of that in the context of the depth other companies are exploring, we've got great potential to find mineralization, which we call deep, which is still only 110 meters below the surface. So
not deep.
We're making new discoveries at depth and, increasing kind of, let's call it the quality and geologic understanding of the known resource. And we hope those two things combined are going to make a project that'll one day be a mine. So that's what the success on those fronts is what's getting us excited.
Gotcha. So you're working towards putting out a resource upgrade. What can the market expect in terms of timeline for that, ounces and grade? Are you giving any guidance?
Not yet. I think we're currently testing, the exploration techniques across the deposits. We've got a 2-kilometer strike on the deposit. We've currently drilled off 2 sections over 250 meters that, again, are very promising. The 5,000 meters that we've since initiated with the fundraising from Eric will allow us to test the rest of that strike and do a couple step outs. So looking to make some new discoveries using our new geologic model. So I think after that point, we'll have to evaluate how much more data we'll need to declare a new resource. We haven't decided what that is yet. So in the near term, we're looking for, at depth and on strike discoveries to make this thing bigger in this, hopefully, higher grade envelope that we're looking for.
Okay, and just remind me, you said you've got a 5,000 meter drill program that you're starting now. How much drilling have you done this year at FG, and how much remains in the current budget?
Yeah, I think we did 8 holes, which are about 1,500 meters, which obviously is all paid for. That's what the results you saw come out this morning. The drill started turning again, I think 4 weeks ago or so. I'm actually headed up there next week to go, see the current drilling. We've got 3 holes complete on the new program already. So we'd expect to have more results coming out in August. And that 5,000 meters should give us, a whole batch of new holes over the next 3 months. So I'd say a release a month on the exploration side at FG. If we keep seeing what we're seeing coming out of the ground, I think we got a real project in our hands.
And so you'll be drilling for the next 3 months, and then you stop because the program's over. You stop because you can't drill through the fall there.
Well, we budgeted 5,000. We'll probably move the drill team over to our Gold Creek project to do some work to maintain our licenses and do a little arm waving about this great land package we have in the Caribou region of BC. But by that point, we expect we'll have permits in California, and we want to switch kind of the big eye of the market from FG, because we'll have said, hey, look, there's a real project. Now we want to take that, sorry, I'm talking like Lord of the Rings Sauron. We want to say, hey, look, now we got this Long Valley project with, hey, look at the great holes we can pull on this project, and make sure we have a string so the market can now get their hands around what that project is. So I think, we're trying not to do too much at once to confuse the market. So right now it's, look, we got a real project in BC. Next, hopefully, we got a real project in Long Valley. And, we already have a real project in Imperial Valley. It's about, de-risking and doing some regional exploration there too. So one at a time.
Let's talk about Imperial, because when we spoke last time, that was the core focus. You had just put out your PEA at the time. So let's get an update there, because I'm sure people are curious what's going on. You put out a press release that you are mobilizing and permitting for drilling. Maybe you can just provide an update on what's going on at Imperial.
Yeah. Imperial, it's our sort of, a lot of people call it the flagship asset because of the PEA. So certainly carries the most tangible value for an analyst in the company. And that project is split really into two components. There's the development piece, which is permitting and moving towards actual mining and development. And then there's an exploration piece, because we have a very large district scale exploration claim block around the asset that we think has great potential for discovering entire new projects, not just step outs from the current mineralization. So on the development front, we are in the process of opening a local office. We've hired some full-time staff, an environmental manager, a government relations manager. We're spending lots of time with the BLM and local politicians and all of the stakeholder groups to make sure that we're really prepped with our local stakeholders when we move the project into permitting later in the fall by submitting our key documents to the BLM to start permitting. Then on the exploration side, which is the news release you mentioned, we've mobilized a soil crew, and a geophysics contractor is mobilizing is going to site as we speak. We had a little delay with the Canadian border on the geophysics contractor, so that's been probably a few weeks behind. But other than that, even in the face of COVID, we're out there doing field work. I expect to see some results in August, and that'll be honing our targets. And then we've got a big batch of drill pads in permitting with the BLM, and hopefully we'll get those permits in the fall, and that'll allow the drilling to commence in California.
Okay, great. And I think you'd identified 4 targets that you wanted to drill that were adjacent to Imperial. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah. In this case, these are not discrete targets. These are target areas. And each area has the potential to host an entire new deposit of similar scale to Imperial's. This is a big area. These targets are 2 to 3 kilometers across. They're currently defined by geophysics, and we're infilling some of that geophysics with that current contractor that's going out there. And we've sort of guessed where we're going to have the best priority targets in setting up some drill pads. So, we're out there trying to make new discoveries, not just little step outs or add a bit of mineralization. This is about making new discoveries, and hopefully that drill has some success later in the year.
It sounds like there's a lot going on in Imperial. So you're expecting some results in August, and then sort of a more intensive drill program through the fall?
Yeah, correct. Drill targeting effectively in August, then get the permits, and then start the drill turning. And again, we're looking to make new discoveries of like new ore bodies that can support mining. So very exciting.
Okay, and then going back to your portfolio approach, which you have several companies in, there's one that we haven't really touched on. I think you mentioned it earlier, which was your Long Valley project, which is also in California, I believe. Can you give us a bit of an update there?
Yeah, so we've purposefully allowed FG and the British Columbia project to come to the surface to really get people to understand what that asset is through a series of obviously the drilling and the news releases. Next in line will be Long Valley. Long Valley is a 1.7 million ounce, pretty much at surface oxide gold resource that looks like the potential to host a preliminary economic assessment already. So we haven't yet made the public decision to go forward with a PEA. We're certainly scoping it internally to see what it looks like, but there's enough gold there to support a mine already. but we also have these great opportunities to go grow that resource. So I think we're going to do a mix of when we get the permits, drilling and step outs to show we can make it bigger, and then to demonstrate the economics. So, at some point this year, we'd like to, have a string of news around Long Valley to really bring that asset out and show that it's got tangible value. But for now, it's sitting there as just as a great opportunity that, on the shelf.
Okay, and I think you mentioned a fourth asset that you have in BC, doing some drilling there, and that encompasses your portfolio. Are you looking at any other opportunities? Are you looking at M&A right now? Is that part of the strategy currently?
Yeah, a core was put together by our chairman, James Hines, who's a great geologist who's got a super good nose for value. But I think right now, core, as we've just talked about, has its hands full with the assets we have currently. So, I don't see us looking at any significant acquisitions that aren't directly related to our key projects. So we will look at land deals and increasing the claim box right around our known projects. But we're not interested right now in bringing any new projects in the company.
Understood. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes. There's really two other things that I wanted to ask you about, and I guess it goes back to when we first were doing a webinar in April, and I'm not going to ask you where you think gold's going or where you think we're at in this cycle. We certainly are in a very interesting time in the world and in the precious metal space. But one of the things that I'm always curious about, and I think investors are as well, is how is your shareholder base changing? How have you seen it change from April to now? Are you seeing generalist investors coming in? Are you seeing US retail? I mean, these are the things that people always want to know, because at least in the fairy tale of gold investing, when US retail comes in, that's like when things get really interesting. So what are you seeing with your own shareholder base?
Yeah, so in my own experience, at Core, we've been very active, doing a lot of online events, going to all the usual mining conferences and engaging with the market. And what we've seen for those we've seen a lot of tire kicking, I would say, from generalists, and I'm not just talking generalist retail, I'm talking, even more importantly, generalist institutions, out of Europe, out of the United States, New York, and some of the smaller markets that are, when you talk to them, you're like, well, why are you taking a meeting? I've never heard of you before. And they're like, well, we've decided to allocate, a proportion of our, portfolio to some gold equities. We previously only had physical, and They've got some story about why they're looking at gold equities. And to me, that's very encouraging, because like you say, that's any little amount of allocation from think about the world portfolio of equities. If that general world says, we're even going to allocate 0.05% to gold equities as a hedge or more, that's a ton of capital for a relatively small sector. So that's very encouraging to me. From the retail side, there's no doubt Core has benefited from a broader base of buying coming out of the US and Europe than we certainly saw in 2019. And I think that has helped us diversify our shareholder register. We've seen, you can see it in the trading. There's lots of little small trades, lots of different brokers participating in the trading, and that's all healthy and it's great. And other people, I think, are seeing similar things, and that just tells me that this is real. And if we have a good, strong, long gold cycle here, there's lots of chance for M&A to pick up and monetize companies and create lots of wealth. And I think we're in for a really good ride here.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's exciting right now. And just before we close off, I think the day that we did the webinar, the stock traded at 28 cents, and it sort of was a reversal day for you. It's been a five-bagger since then, which is a great move. Congratulations to you and the team. How do you look at valuation for your own company right now? Because with that kind of move, I know you've probably seen some of your investors cycle in and out, but the entire sector also has moved. So how do you see yourself valued? What do you think your intrinsic value is? Maybe you can just touch on that before we end off.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, for sure. Core's equity. When you look at the chart, you're thinking, wow, gee, have I missed this thing? And we're happy we've got some traction. We're pretty fundamental here. We've now got analyst coverage from PI, Cormark, with a couple other watch lists. And when we're still only trading at a low price to NAV multiple of the PEA compared to peers, we're still trading at one of the lowest value per ounces in the ground metrics. So when I look at Core, yeah, I'm happy with the price appreciation, but I'm not happy with our valuation. I think Core has assets that can be at least average, and I would think we could make them better than average. And if you believe that, we can create the same kind of value for the current generation of shareholders as we created for those that owned when we were 20 and 30 cents.
Sure. And when you look at PNAV, I mean, those NAVs are based on much lower gold prices, I would imagine. So
yeah, there's lots of conservatism built into those numbers. And then when you look at the portfolio of assets that carry all that gold in the ground, and there's lots of things you can do to unlock that value. And we'll have options going down the track in a good gold market. Maybe we create a BC company and a US company to separate the development and the exploration. Maybe we monetize assets. And all that will just be able to solidify value at, I believe, much higher valuations than where we are today.
Interesting. Well, it's certainly an exciting time for Core. Congratulations on the results you've had at FG. I know when we did the webinar, the focus really was on the Imperial PEA that had just come out, so it was very newsy. And you didn't downplay FG at the time, but it certainly wasn't the core focus. So congratulations for having such phenomenal success at what was a secondary asset. We'll see if that remains a secondary asset or not.
Yeah.
But congratulations. I look forward to seeing more results out of FG and results out of Imperial this fall. And maybe just before we wrap up, you can just touch on the key investment highlights for Core and a couple catalysts that you're really excited about, and we'll call it a day.
Okay, well, thanks. I mean, Core has been set up with the investment from Eric Sprott to, drill aggressively over the back half of 2020, and I think news flow from that is going to dominate the, the news releases of the company. But we can't lose sight of the fact that we're de-risking Imperial development and pushing it into permitting here in the near term. So I think there's a lot going on, and there'll be a lot of news flow, which is important in this type of gold market, to just keep eyeballs on the company and keep attracting new shareholders, allow shareholders that are in to make money, and keep the share price moving up. So, the capital from Eric allows us to do that. And, we got lots to do in 2020.
Great. Well, I look forward to your next round of drill results, and best of luck to you. Always
Great.
a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.